All right, good morning. Pearl Lockwood here from Lockwood College Prep. Good morning, Pearl.
Good morning, Andy. Hi, everybody.
Welcome back for another episode of College Coffee Talk. If you have a coffee or some other type of beverage, please join us in our synchronized sip on 3. 1, 2, 3. God, I love doing that.
Cheers.
Thank you for using my branded mug, not the Pearl mug.
I was wondering if you'd notice.
So other than the George and Gracie style banter, we cover all things related to college, getting into college, paying for college, whether you should even go to college. And this is live every Monday on this Facebook page. It's also repurposed, as we say in the biz, out into our podcast, our number 2 ranking college planning podcast, the College Admissions Edge. And I would be remiss if I didn't point out, like I always do, number 2 in a very crowded college planning podcast field. Very. As well as YouTube and everywhere else. So good morning. Let us know that we're coming in loud and clear. I see Paul is with us. Hello, sir. Nice to see you. Paul is a current client of ours and enjoying the full Pearl experience, I believe. So today's topic is about mistakes. Pearl, I don't know if I ever told you this, but my my buddy Roz Slaughter, the motivator, Coach Roz. So we have a mutual friend who's, I think he's like a performance coach, but for executives. He's a psychologist, and he always says, "Hey, I sell mistakes," and we're like, "What?" Right? But I think what he means is how to avoid mistakes, and we've come up with 5 college planning mistakes to avoid, like some sort of wet toothbrush or something in a gas station.
Nice.
Use your own analogy. And 2 of them are college financial aid related mistakes. 3 of them are college admissions mistakes. I think we could have come up with about 138 if we spent a little bit more than 18 seconds planning today's episode. But we're just going to cut it short because people have other things to do this morning besides listen to this banter. But I think we should just get going. So you come up with, I know you've already done your mistakes in our production meeting.
Mm-hmm. I have.
Let's do the first 2 financial aid mistakes. So
okay.
Do the first one. What's mistake number 1?
Mistake number 1 is applying to schools that don't give money to your child. Okay, so let
a big one. I don't mean to interrupt again.
Are you trying to steal my thunder?
I'm not stealing your thunder. I just want to point out that this never gets talked about in any college night or any conversation that we know of, because everyone talks about, like, the how do you fill out the FAFSA, which is FAFSA, or
like nails on a chalkboard.
Yeah. So how do you, when do they do and all these types of things? But what gets overlooked is that the colleges are different in terms of their generosity, right?
For starters, they're not only different, and this may seem like an obvious point, they're not only different in generosity, but they are also different in what they cost altogether. So when you have your big list and you're just thinking this school, that school, you may not be dialing in on exactly what the cost of attendance, COA, cost of attendance is at each school. So just for a quick example, you can just take 2 schools right off the bat. Cornell University costs $95,000 a year. All in, cost of attendance defined as room, board, and tuition. And then you can take a state school, Binghamton in the state of New York, costs $35,000 all in, cost of attendance, room, board, and tuition. So you're starting off in that scenario at the outset at 2 different schools entirely and their costs. So if you have one that costs $35,000, the other costs $95,000, let's just say very quickly, in the calculations of the FAFSA. When you submit a FAFSA based on income assets, it returns, when you submit it, a confirmation page that has an SAI number on it. What is an SAI?
You're getting so nerdy.
I know, a student aid index, but I'm into context.
I just want to rephrase this, reframe this though. We have so many people who apply to like Penn State or Maryland or Michigan or whatever, and they come back and they're like, I didn't get any money.
I didn't get any. Well, those are state schools that are not typically the state that the student resides in. So they're not getting the in-state discount. And we call that the worst case scenario, really, the out-of-state state school for a student. Why? Because those schools, first of all, do not have large endowments, don't have the in-state to deal with as well, but they just don't have the endowments that the bigger private schools have. So what you have to pay.
You can't get blood from a stone.
What's that? You can't get blood from a stone, is right. So there are generous. Okay, so there's a couple of things to dial in on. There are generous schools and those that do not give any merit money altogether. Then there are state schools versus the private sticker price. There's the sticker price and what you actually pay. So what that means is if you are applying to, as Andy pointed out, a bunch of state schools, you are, generally speaking, not likely to get merit money for sure, or even likely any need-based money as well. It's a very tough.
Let me just round that out, because schools like UMass, University of Vermont, Delaware, the solid state schools, not necessarily the elite ones like UCLA or Texas or Michigan. Some schools do give merit, but we just see time and again the schools I mentioned, Maryland, which is not in the category of the elite state schools. Same thing with Penn State. Mm-hmm. It really depends on, again, what pond you fish in, right? Because the schools that you just alluded to here, the schools that tend to give money are the expensive private schools. That's right. the irony or the counterintuitive fact.
Right. So the private school. So the first question you also need to ask is, does a school even offer merit money altogether? Do they even participate in offering those non-need eligible discounts? So that's question one. The Ivy League officially do not offer merit awards. They are strictly need-based. That's their official word. So if you're not need eligible and you're applying to an Ivy League school, you should be prepared to be paying that full cost of attendance. Now, there are many schools, and frequently a tip-off to which schools those are schools that also require the CSS profile. Why? Because the CSS profile determines your eligibility for institutional aid at a particular school. Those are schools that have more money to give potentially. Does not necessarily mean they're merit offering. You're going to that's on a school by school basis. You'll have to check with each school that you're applying to whether or not they offer merit money. So what's the net of this? What's the recommendation? You should apply to schools in addition to the schools you have your heart set on. Make sure you round out your list with other generous merit offering schools that are private. Maybe the sticker price is high, but those are the schools. And assuming you're going to be a merit candidate at that school, when what that means is you have to be in that top 25% of the school, the merit offering schools statistics in terms of its freshman grades and scores. They're entering freshman grades and scores. So that all of those things are what you need to be mindful of. And the recommendation is add those schools on your list.
Good.
That was mistake numero uno. Okay.
Good morning to Rosenda, to Susan, to Faith. And if you guys have any questions about today's episode, if you're with us live or even if you're watching on replay, we're going over only five deadly college planning mistakes to avoid at all costs. Pearl's in the middle of talking about 2 financial aid mistakes. The first one was applying to schools that aren't generous. The best way, this is not what we do personally, but the best way to figure out whether a school is generous or not is to look at the common data set. So if you're interested in a specific school, we mentioned Penn State before, you would search Penn State common data set. And you would get about 14, 15 pages of spreadsheets, including information about their average merit aid scholarship, other information about whether they give need-based aid, how long it takes to graduate, which we don't really talk about, but that's a big deal. So that's the way to do it. We cheat. Pearl has a very comprehensive software that helps us figure this out.
Yes.
So
indeed.
if we didn't, we'd use the common data set. And so block out enough time to do that.
Yes.
Pearl, what is mistake number 2 besides coming on the air with me today and being subject to my interruptions?
Never, honey. I love them. All right. Mistake number 2 is, why would a family file financial aid forms? Why would a student file financial aid forms even if you think, even if you know you're not going to be need eligible? Why bother?
Is that a mistake or is that just a question?
That's just a question. The mistake would be not filing financial aid forms.
Yeah. Like Jeopardy, you've got to have the right format.
Right. In a question, please, Ken, Alex. Okay.
Not Alex.
No mas, but all right. R.I.P. So here are a couple of reasons why you would file financial aid forms even if you think or know you do not qualify. Number 1, filing to trigger a merit award consideration altogether. What does that mean? So did you know there are a handful of schools out there that will not even look at your student's eligibility for merit aid at that school unless you file financial aid forms?
Right.
I know that sounds a little weird and counterintuitive, but NYU does this. Fordham does this. So if you are applying to those schools, you better make sure, if you would like a discount from a merit source, or any source, frankly, you got to file your financial aid forms, irrespective of what they say. Okay, that's number 1. Number 2, you want to preserve your right to get loans, should you need them, be it student or parent. This is government federal loans. The prerequisite for obtaining those loans, filing the FAFSA. That may be all well and true for loans, but if your particular school requires both forms, meaning the FAFSA and the CSS profile, you got to do both. Reason number 3 why you would file financial aid forms even if you think you're not need eligible. Even if you're not need eligible. You can use the filing of your financial aid forms to demonstrate financial strength. In some cases, it could help potentially with admissions. It's like almost akin to having maybe a few SAT points higher. I don't want to overstate that, but again, about 25% of any sitting class subsidizes the remaining 75%. So colleges are businesses and they need people to pay. So that's not your agenda, but that's their agenda. So that is in part what you could signal to them as maybe an advantage to your admission by showing you're a family who can pay and is not need eligible, and you're demonstrating financial strength. So
let me just pick up on that one, because there's one more thing here. That demonstration that you can pay, whether it's by flexing, by showing your actual financials, but frequently coming from a zip code that's pretty affluent, those types of signals, that will counterintuitively increase your odds of receiving a merit scholarship. So it's not it doesn't just help you get in, but colleges, even though this is not politically correct, and this is again one of these things you'll never hear from your high school college night or your guidance counselor, your school counselor, whatever they call themselves, colleges cannot afford to give everyone a full ride that they wish that they could. There's only about 25 colleges, if that, in the country that could afford to do that. So the business model, like Pearl just alluded to, is to go after, to recruit affluent families. But then the second part of that is to offer merit scholarships, which does a couple of things. One, it helps everyone, helps the family, like all of us, feel like we got a good deal.
Mhm.
Or two, bragging rights, not just for the kid, but also for mom and dad at the next, barbecue or 6 hours on the lacrosse field.
Sure.
And it does also help, and this is not done by happenstance. Colleges have these enrollment agents, these consultants, enrollment advisors, I should say, who have algorithms to help them in effect figure out, okay, if you live in Westport, Connecticut, and you're not eligible for need-based aid at Trinity College, Trinity can offer $23,000 to entice that family not to enroll at UConn. But if it were less than 23, the odds of landing that student at Trinity diminish. So it's all done through big data, and it certainly helps, like Pearl said, to flex and to show your financial strength, and it will not decrease your likelihood of getting merited.
That's right. So I've already gone through 3 reasons why you would file financial aid forms, even if you think you are not need eligible. Reason number 4 is a big one. Okay. Reason number 4, you file financial aid forms so that you can preserve your right to withdraw from an early decision commitment if you feel that the financial aid package from that ED school doesn't work for your family, subjectively, period. End of story. Is your guidance counselor going to look at you, and give you a snarl? Maybe, but that's inappropriate, because what I've just explained to you is the one and only ethical, proper way to get out of your early decision binding commitment.
Yeah. Well, we talk about that a lot. People ask us about that almost every live workshop we do. We're actually speaking twice this week, by the way, once here in the office, which is sort of overbooked, but we still have room Thursday for the Bryant Library in Roslyn, Pearl's old stomping grounds, class of 87. Cheerleading, softball, a lot of theater. That will not be on tap Thursday night, but if you want information on that, just drop a note in Facebook comments if you're interested. Yeah, so it's interesting. What you came up with. There's different types of mistakes that you can make. There's mistakes of commission, where you're just doing something wrong. You're switching your social security numbers around, or your social security number is wrong because on your tax return, because your accountant made that mistake, and you haven't picked that up in like 18 years or something.
Yeah.
You always catch that. But then there are mistakes of omission, which is sort of our focus today. Things that you don't do. It's not something you affirmatively do wrong. It's stuff that you don't do. So not filing is certainly one of those. Is a big one for many people. So too is not applying to the correct schools, the schools that are generous. And that I think if I had to come up with the number one reason why people are stunned every spring that they received an underwhelming amount of financial aid, it's usually because of that mistake, because they applied to the wrong schools, but they just never hear this stuff. You never hear this stuff from any person that you should hear it from, you would think.
And as we've explained many times, timing in this process is hugely important. Timing in terms of when you do your applications for admission, timing for your essays, timing for financial aid, all of it. Geez, I just lost my train of thought. What were you just saying?
I'm going to move on to a couple of comments here while you regroup. Rob making a comment about my inner lawyer coming out when I say omission.
So too. I was thinking the same.
Oh, you're stealing his ideas too, not just mine.
Not just yours.
Okay. Rob, I resent that. I am a recovering attorney, just not an inner attorney.
Yes,
yeah.
I remembered the last thing I wanted to say, and it is important.
Fine.
You want to know these things before you apply or early on while you're applying, because it is, if you learn come April that you were wrong about all of this, that's not the time to know this information.
Right.
You need to know it. I mean, this is how I counsel my clients. I let them know at the outset all the information just so they have a full set of cards that they're working with. Anyway, that's all. You got to know this. That's the timing issue. You got to know it now. We're in the fall of the application season, while the options to apply to schools are still with you.
Mm-hmm.
That was it.
All right. Comment from Carmelina, which actually picks up on what we were saying here. My son has gotten a bunch of acceptances, but I don't see merit information in the offers. That's probably because you're applying to schools that don't offer merit, or the competition for merit might be above your son. I don't know. I'm just guessing. I'm not casting aspersions, but it's either one of those two or both.
Right.
And that's unfortunate. Okay, let me segue here quickly. We have 5 minutes for me to do 3 mistakes here. Mistake number. So now I'm switching into the college admissions mistakes. Mistake number 1 is a mistaken belief that things are the same now in terms of getting into college as they used to be when we were applying, assuming we're approximately the same age. So examples I give all the time in my presentations are, for example, Northeastern University, which when I graduated high school, right outside of Boston, they admitted 90% of their applicants. And now it's around 6 or 7%, depending on the year, because they've learned how to game the system and get more applicants applying and become more highly selective or highly rejective, as some pundits refer to it. University of Miami, same type of thing. Back in the 80s, you could get in with a C average and rich parents and a cocaine habit, let's face it. And now you need to be in that mid-90s range. You need to have SATs and ACTs that are, I would say in the mid-1400s and the equivalent for the ACT. Things are topsy-turvy. Plus, you've got, kids have to do all sorts of crazy extracurriculars, or at least that's the perception. And you've got all sorts of overloading of AP classes. It is much different. The game has changed. There's been a loss of sanity, I think, but it is different. Pearl, any comments on that before I move on to my next mistake?
No, I'm going to keep everything brief. Continue, because
Okay. Well, I encourage you to chime in. Anyone who has comments, put them in also. But Pearl gets first dibs. Mistake number 2, I think, is with kids' extracurricular activities. Their roster of extracurriculars. First of all, there's a big difference between doing the same stuff that everyone else does versus doing atypical activities. So when you're applying to just to take a step back, when you're applying to college, what you're really doing is answering an invisible question on the common application, and that question, it's not written anywhere, but it's in the hearts and minds of admissions officers. That question is, well, why should we take you compared to 50,000 other kids with 94 averages and a decent ACT or decent SAT who are white or Indian or Asian or from a nice neighborhood? Why you? The time to be thinking about this, by the way, is not when you're applying. It's when you are building that body of work. So a typical activity or a typical award is being in a club or doing last weekend's walk that was to raise money for breast cancer or autism or autistic moms with breast cancer, or whatever the cause is. That's great. That's nice, but that is not atypical. If you're in National Honor Society, congratulations, you've made it to the top 70% of your class. There is no admissions officer who's going to say, "Get me the National Honor Society kid." It doesn't happen. Instead, what you need to be thinking about is and depending on what type of college you're applying to, going deep, I hate the term, but I admit it's accurate. You need a passion project. I think that's horrible. But you need to be expressing something that you're potentially interested in. Ideally, it doesn't have to be, but doing more. So that's different than just doing the last weekend's cancer walk. It's it's actually maybe organizing something and publicizing it. It could be an official club. It doesn't have to be an official club. It just could be your own initiative. It might be even more impressive, because what admissions officers are looking at is for kids who get deeply involved. They go, they express that interest, and they communicate on the college applications the value that they are going to bring to that potential campus community. That's what that's what this is all about, is showing how valuable you could be, not bragging about all of your accomplishments, but think about typical versus atypical. Okay, that's my takeaway from mistake number 2. Pearl, any comments?
No, you did a great job. I don't really have any comments, except I agree with everything you said.
Okay, so unlike you. Something going on?
No. Wait.
Are we okay?
We're okay.
Okay.
Neither.
Mistake number 3 is starting this whole process too late. I just sort of alluded to that.
Yeah.
When you apply to college, that whole body of work that you are summarizing and yes, making that closing argument to which I never did, but Pearl was a prosecutor, so she made closing arguments to that panel, the admissions committee. The time to be thinking about that body of work is not in 11th grade when you first had that meeting with your school counselor, whether you're at a private school or a public school. That body of work starts the minute that your foot hits the floor in the high school that you're attending. In fact, I actually I say that a lot, but I need to correct myself. Our former client, who's now the superintendent of a school system out in Long Island, told me, well, actually, that body of work could start earlier if you're in 8th grade and you're taking advanced classes.
Yeah.
But when you apply, they're looking at every class you've taken, everything you've done over the summer, everything you've done, club-wise in school, athletically, musically, etc., things you've done outside of school. The time to be building that body of work is not when you're staring at the applications or when you finally have that sit down with your school counselor. Mm-hmm. So that's my last mistake, is starting too late. The earlier you start, the better. By the way, that's just to clarify. That is not a commercial to hire a college advisor. We do have kids who start with us in as early as 8th grade in some cases. I actually have a 3rd grader coming in to the office next.
No way.
Yeah, I'm not even kidding. But I don't think they're going to hire us. But I don't think I have anything to offer them. But a lot of kids, whether they're in 3rd grade or 9th grade or even 10th grade, they're just not ready to take advice from an outside professional. So that's why I'm saying it's not a commercial to hire us or any college advisor if your kid's not motivated and not going to be coachable and take the advice. Otherwise, it's a waste of money. So
right.
Right.
Yeah. I was going to say, that being said, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, those years are the ones that are all up for judgment. So if you are already in 11th grade, let's say, and first, waking up and smelling the college coffee, if you will, you may be missing out on coursework that you would have needed to have taken in 9th and 10th grade potentially, so that you can compete academically on a certain level, because part of the admission equation is the amount of rigor you've taken in your school coursework. So if you now wake up and decide or learn in 11th grade that you really should have been in APs and not honors, and it isn't the same, and it really does matter, it's better to know those things earlier. Again, timing, pervasive in this process. It matters. And it matters that you understand all the timing elements here. A lot of moving parts.
Carmelina asks, when do we receive info on merit? That is generally like you were alluding to, either with the acceptance letter or a few days afterward. It's usually not weeks after that.
Right.
Susan, could you please repeat what will be discussed on Thursday in Roslyn? It's probably going to be 90% Q&A. I'm going to be just taking questions. I don't think it's going to be a large group. I'll just be answering questions. So if you have more questions about this process, that's a good opportunity to get them answered. Also great, I think, to hear other parents' questions.
Yeah.
I will certainly be rounding out, a lot of what we are talking about now, which is just a tip of the iceberg type of thing. So I'll put the link in the comments here once we get off the air if you want to check out the actual presentation. Pearl, you get the last word.
Have a great week. Pay attention to deadlines of all sorts and shapes and sizes. And if you have questions, let us know.
Very nice. Okay. That's it. That's a wrap. Have a great week, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.